Hello people of the internet, Sanxion here, and in this video we're going to talk about using groups in Cubase to do creative sound design rather than just the boring old let's group some sounds together. So let's crack on. When you normally think of, or when I normally think of a group in Cubase, I would use it this way. So I've got these channels here, and if we look at the output of all those channels, the output of the channel is the group that we've got up here called bass group, and it's the same for all of those. Their output is set to, by default, set to stereo out, but I'm setting it to this bass group. And what that allows us to do is, now when we play this bass line here, it allows us to do things like that. So we cut the bottom end off so we can replace it with our consistent sub sound. So now when we play those together, but that's kind of boring, right? That's just like the bog standard way of using a group. So let's start thinking about groups in a slightly different way so that we can do something slightly more creative with them. So let's leave that output as it is. So we want all these bass sounds here apart from the sub. The sub is actually going to the stereo out, but let's leave that group as the output of these bass, and we'll create some more groups. So we go here, we say new group track, and we'll call this group 1. And let's actually create 3 for the purposes of this video. Group 2, and one more, group 3. And what we can do here is we can, rather than sending the output of this bass group to any of these groups, we want to send the output of this bass group to all 3 of those channels. And the way we do that is we first of all turn its output off. We don't want it playing through the stereo and through these groups. So now when we hit play, we don't hear any sound other than our sub when we turn it back on. So let's bring up this channel again. Now what we want to actually do is use the sends here. So basically we're going to send this group to these groups, and if you look at the places we can send it to, they're already nicely set up for us. So group 1, group 2 and group 3, and they're all turned off at the moment, so we'll still have no sound. Let's get everything on one screen, which might help us a little bit, so we can have both going at the same time. So we've still got no sound if we hit play, but if we turn, say, group 1 on, it will now play. Now obviously if we turn all 3 of those on, it's just going to be 3 times as loud because we're playing all 3 at the same time. But what we can do is start being quite creative with these groups. So let's look at group 1, and let's say we want to really affect the really high tops. Let's say we want to put a load of reverb on the high tops. So let's help ourselves with a little name. We'll call this super tops or something like that, right? And we'll solo that and just listen. Now obviously that's the whole frequency spectrum of our bass. Now if we do a low cut and be quite harsh with it, so it's almost like a filter at this point, and we'll go right up to, say, like, 5-6K, or maybe even a bit less than that. Yeah, start slightly a bit 4.5, or maybe even a bit less than that. So we're just getting that really high top, and then we put a reverb on that, like quite a long reverb. And we're just affecting that. Now if we go to group 2 and turn that on, what we can do is basically do the opposite cut here. So we'll do a high cut, and we'll chop off all that top stuff. And like, if you're doing this in a real world environment, you will be a bit more specific with your numbers and stuff. But now we've got this group here, group 2, which is all the information other than that high top, which was this, if you remember. But now when we play those together, we've just got that cool reverb, but only happening on those really high frequencies. And we could do something even better than that. So let's look at our group 3. So on our group 2, let's say we want to also make that our mid-range. So we will also cut off the bottom as well, and again make it quite harsh, and we'll just like our high mids. So now that group 2 is this, and let's set group 3 to just be our lower frequencies, I should say. So when we play all three together, it should sound pretty much. Now we've got a little bit of crossover somewhere. Let's have a quick look at that. Right, we've gone too far down on here. But what we could then do is, say on this mid-range one, we could do like some super compression on there, or some limiting or something like that, to really bring out those frequencies. So now when we play all three together, it's so much more interesting than what we did have. If we imagine we go back to here and set our output back to just stereo out, turn our sends off, what we did have was this. Which, you know, may well do for the track that we're working on. But with a little bit of messing about, and we didn't really do too much here, this is very slapdash. But what we have ended up with is this. Put our sub on. And you know, you could have as many groups as you want. You could send this bass group to, you know, 10 different groups if you wanted to do different things. Like here, we could maybe add a delay to that. To that just high mid-range stuff, like something cool like that. And the cool thing is, we're only adding the delay to these frequencies. So there you go. That's one way you can use groups in a slightly more creative way. Till next time, see ya.